I entered the palace at 30, practically ancient by imperial standards. The first night I was summoned, the emperor got so startled he bolted out the door. So I figured, forget competing for his favor. I just kick back and enjoy life. Early retirement, basically. But the emperor wasn't having it. He cornered me against the wall, eyes red. Sister, do you feel nothing for me? Not even a little? Everyone in the capital knew the story. The prime minister's eldest daughter, a spinster who couldn't get married off. Not because I was ugly, quite the opposite. I was too well-bred and too pretty, so my standards were sky-high. The top scholar? Too soft. No backbone. The triumphant young general? Too rough? Too brooding. The young lord was funny, sure, but not exactly easy on the eyes. And so I stayed single until 25, while every other noble kid my age already had kids running around. Still no husband. That year, the new emperor ascended and opened the palace selection. My dad took a deep breath, stomped his foot, and decided to ship me off to the palace. His logic. He'd given his whole life to the empire, so the emperor could surely take care of his unmarriageable daughter. Should be fine, right? All I could say was, Dad, do you have any idea what you're doing? The emperor just turned 20. A few more years and I'd be old enough to be his mom. But my dad didn't care. He greased some palms at the Bureau of Internal Affairs and got me squeezed into the selection. Before I left, my mom snuck me a little bundle and told me to open it once I was inside. The candidates were all around 15 or 16. Some of them I'd actually held as babies. Lord have mercy. My dad's bribery must have worked because I sailed through the selection without much trouble. Standing with the other candidates, I could hear people whispering about me. Something about being old, past her prime. I guess aging had mellowed me out a bit. The wild, arrogant girl I used to be had quieted down some. A few years ago, I would have launched myself at them. Now I just smiled and asked, is there a problem? The ringleader, a pretty feisty little thing, scowled at me. Ma'am, I think you took a wrong turn. Ma'am, she called me ma'am. She obviously knew I'd gotten in through the back door, and she still had the nerve to come at me directly. Either she had serious backing or she didn't. But could her family outrank my dad? I just smiled at her. My father is the prime minister. In this world, your status is only as real as you make it. My dad clawed his way to the top of every official in the empire. It'd be a shame not to use that. It'd be downright disrespectful to all his hard work. Sure enough, the girls went dead silent instantly. Only the ringleader muttered under her breath, "Big deal." I glanced at her and quietly made up my mind. I could coast in this palace, but I was not letting this little girl get one up on me. That would be embarrassing. Embarrassing for my dad, mostly. I didn't walk into this palace just on my dad's coattails, though. There was another very important reason. My childhood best friend, Ji Wantong. She's now the Empress Dowager. We grew up together from diapers. Ji Wantong always had ambition. She entered the palace at 16 and spent 10 years grinding, and somehow ended up as Empress Dowager. Wild. Since the emperor had just taken the throne and was swamped, the selection fell entirely on her. I walked into the hall with the other candidates. Ji Wantong took one look at me and spat out a full mouthful of tea. Everyone around her panicked. Only I grinned at her smugly, but to her credit, she's the Empress Dowager now. She recovered fast. She lifted her eyes, casually pointed out a few pretty, well-born girls, and assigned them titles. When her finger landed on me, she paused, then carefully asked, "The Shen girl carries herself well. How about the title of noble lady?" I smiled and nodded. My bestie always comes through. After the ceremony, I was assigned to Chunhua Palace. My roommate was a girl named Xu Jing. Sweet girl. Round-faced, like a little dumpling. Blushed when she talked. But most importantly, she said I looked like I was 18. Smart girl. I looked at her with warm, maternal eyes. That night, I finally remembered the bundle my mom had snuck me. I opened it up, and it was a stack of romance novels. Except something was off about the contents. Every single one was cut off halfway. "Mom, why did you only give me the first half?" Day 4 in the palace. The eunuchs came to take Xu Jing away. She was crying, clutching my hand, saying she didn't want to go. She came back with her face completely glowing, rosy and radiant. I asked her what happened. She just giggled. Absolutely clueless girl. I roasted her in my head, but I can't lie. I was a little curious too. I guess that's just age talking. The emperor seemed decent enough, actually. Very thorough. Equal opportunity with everyone. A few days later, the same eunuch came to tell me the emperor had chosen my tablet. He looked at me a bit uncertain and double-checked. "You are noble lady Shen?" I nodded. "Let's go. Don't keep the emperor waiting." Even after he dropped me off, he still seemed uneasy and confirmed again. What's with this guy? Asking any more would just be rude. Once he left, I quietly lay down on the bed. Footsteps outside, and the emperor pushed open the door. He stood at the foot of my bed. When nothing moved for a while, I couldn't help but sit up, and came face to face with a young man. Even better looking than the portraits. In that moment, I was genuinely grateful for my dad's genius decision. This emperor was very much my type. When I suddenly sat up, he got startled and stumbled back several steps. "Noble Lady Shen?" he called out, a little confused. I replied with a coy smile. "Your servant is here." He looked at me, swallowed hard. I'm not being modest, I'm genuinely pretty. Oval face, willow leaf brows. Classique femme fatale type. He was clearly inexperienced. His face went red fast. Even the tips of his ears turned pink. Just a baby, really. I walked toward him and slowly reached up around his neck. And the next second, he shoved me away, blurted out, "Sorry," and ran out in a panic. This selection brought in 23 ladies total. When we gathered to greet the Empress Dowager, I quietly scanned the room. "That one's gorgeous, that one too." Being the emperor really is a good life. After the Empress Dowager finished speaking, all the other ladies bowed and left. Once they cleared out, Ji Wantong grabbed my hand. "You were summoned last night, right? I personally pulled strings with the bureau to get you in. Isn't my son handsome?" When the late emperor told me to pick a prince to adopt, I spotted him immediately. This chubby little thing, so cute I couldn't look away. "So how did he do?" I sighed. Still too young. Ji Wantong's face dropped like she'd been punched. How could this be?" Something felt off, but I didn't think too hard about it. I figured she was just disappointed about the emperor's performance, so I patted her shoulder and said casually, "It's fine. He's young, it's completely normal." Ji Wantong's face got even darker. "Prepare my palanquin to the imperial study." The new emperor was busy, His visits to the inner palace could be counted on one hand each month. 23 ladies in the palace, and he'd only summoned 8 in total. Come to think of it, I hadn't seen the emperor in a whole month. Spent my days snacking sunflower seeds and reading novels with Shujing. Life was actually pretty chill. But Ji Wantong seemed even more miserable than me, sighing all day long. I asked her what was wrong. She grabbed my hand and started whimpering. She was always a crybaby. Didn't expect that to carry over into her Empress Dowager era. Last time she cried this hard was when we snuck out to catch a glimpse of the top scholar. The crowd was too packed, and she face-planted right at his feet. Cried for 3 straight days after that. Swore off love forever, then immediately developed a crush on the Ministry of Rights official's son. Speaking of that guy, I ran into him a couple years back, not even 30 and already going bald. The scholar fared better. Still had his hair, but definitely middle-aged pudgy now. I thought about the emperor's lean, fit frame and quietly sighed to myself. Youth really is something. Mid-sigh, Ji Wantong started tugging on my sleeve, sniffling. Your life is just so hard. What? I'm not crying, and what exactly did you do to me? She sat up straight and looked at me with total seriousness. Gigi, don't worry, I'll make things right for you. What things? She just smiled at me all mysteriously. Was she finally going to send me a couple of pretty boy companions? No companions arrived. Instead, a very angry emperor. Xu was sharp-looking, baby-faced, with that hot-headed young energy. Too bad his expression completely ruined it. What a waste of a good face. The second he walked in, Shujing shrank into herself like a little quail. She was always fawning over His Majesty this and His Majesty that. But now that he was actually here, she couldn't even look up. Kids, I gave Xu a proper graceful bow. This is what a noble daughter looks like, take notes. Xu told me to rise, face still dark. What did you say to the Empress Dowager? I blinked. Total innocence. Your servant said nothing. He pinched the bridge of his nose with a scowl. Stay out of the Empress Dowager's way for the next few days. Stay in your own palace and copy scriptures. No, please. Reading gives me a headache. I tried to keep talking, but he wasn't listening, already turning to leave. You know, Qianqian used to hold you as a baby. Can't you show a little mercy? Still didn't work. The little emperor was gone. Whatever was going on between him and his mom, why drag me into it? Fine, I'll copy the scriptures. Not like I had a choice. Siu even sent an old matron to watch over me. Today was another one of Shujing's summon nights. She headed out excited, clutching a book. I yanked it out of her hands. Last time, His Majesty and I discussed the treatise on governance. I had a few things I didn't quite get. I was planning to bring it and ask him to explain tonight. How long were you two at it? All night. The whole night and you two just sat there reciting texts at each other? Not reciting. Discussing. I couldn't wrap my head around it. But I was absolutely shook. So the Emperor summons girls every night just to have study sessions? Mid-month, it was my turn to be summoned again. After learning there'd be no actual sleeping involved, I'd completely lost interest in the whole thing. Before the Emperor even showed up, I'd already kicked off my shoes and gone to bed. No way was I getting dragged into a poetry lecture all night. But just as I dozed off, the door swung open and startled me awake. I groggily sat up and came face to face with the Emperor. Those eyes of his, soft, warm, like a puppy's, made you want to lean in without even thinking. Shen Nanzi. What are you thinking about? Girl. That's Ji Wantong's son in name. Noble consort Shen has been doing quite well lately. Seeing that Siyu's expression looked off, I read the room, climbed out of bed, and curtsied. It is all thanks to your Majesty's grace. Is that so? Because I haven't been faring well at all lately. I very much wanted to ask what that had to do with me, but given the situation, keeping my mouth shut was the wiser move. I hear that last time the performance left noble consort Shen rather unsatisfied. Perhaps tonight we shall give noble consort what she wishes, so the palace gossips have nothing left to whisper about. What is your Majesty saying? You are vigorous as a dragon, soaring with the might of a... The Emperor listened, and as he did, his face slowly turned red. Genuinely, visibly red, and in a way that wasn't normal. My years of reading scandalous novels told me he'd been drugged. And in this entire palace, the only person bold enough to drug the Emperor was that one woman. Shiwan, you really are my best friend. Siyu pulled me into her arms, eyes heavy with something unreadable, voice trembling as she called my name. The young Emperor and I had actually known each other for quite some time. Back then, he was just a frail prince banished to the cold palace, bullied by the other princes every day. That year, I accompanied my father on a visit to the palace, and happened to pull him out of the water when he fell in. He'd held onto me just like this back then, like a clingy little cat, begging me to stay. He grabbed hold of me, like I was the last lifeline in the world, and wouldn't let go even as the sun set. I lied to him that day, promised I'd come back to play with him tomorrow. But I never set foot in the palace again after that. A minister's daughter secretly meeting a prince. That was a serious crime. I was reckless, but I did know where to draw the line, and I imagined he'd long forgotten me anyway. I watched Siyu's face inch closer and closer toward mine. I resigned myself and closed my eyes. Bright and early the next morning, Ji Wantong came bursting in to find me. I had just gotten up. Shu Jing was in the middle of rubbing out the ache in my lower back. Ji Wantong's eyes lit up like lanterns. She called Shu Jing over before he could slip away, then shooed him out the door, and leaned in close to ask how things went. Hauling him around half the night absolutely wrecked my back. Last night I'd been hoping for some domineering emperor sweeps heroine off her feet moment, but then he stopped again, started hollering for cold water. Nobody came no matter how long he shouted, so I just hoisted him up and flung him straight into the lotus pond. Put a bit too much muscle into the throw. Threw my back out. The lotus pond in early autumn, cool and misty. He stood there in the water, completely soaked. He stared at me with this unreadable look. Didn't say a word. Like an abandoned little dog. Honestly, he was the one who asked for cold water. Now he was pulling that wronged wife face. Who was that performance even for? I crouched on the bank and met his gaze across the water, then dusted off my hands and walked away. Throwing the emperor into a lotus pond. Not a small matter, not a huge one either. But who's my father? The prime minister. I heard the old man had been getting an earful in court every day since. Poor thing. I hadn't even brought up the drugging incident yet. Ji Wantong meanwhile had already let it go and buried her face against me weeping. She's been like this since we were children. When she was 8, I was swinging a broadsword around and accidentally sliced off half of Ji Wantong's hair. She cried for 3 days straight. That was the first time I realized there existed in the capital a girl this capable of crying. Trip and fall, cry. Pet rabbit dies, cry. I eat 1 extra piece of her chestnut cake, cry. Yet here she was, Empress Dowager, still crying at the drop of a hat. I pressed my fingers to my aching temples. What was it this time? He seems to have no interest in women. My eyes went wide. How do you know? I only found out myself a few days ago. When concubines attend him, he spends the whole night, either discussing the 4 books and 5 classics with them, or debating political strategy. If a concubine isn't well read, he bores her to sleep mid-conversation. If she happens to be scholarly, he keeps her up talking the entire night. Several concubines have come to me in tears, swearing they'd rather die than attend him again. So what do we do? Seduce him, she said. I glanced at the maidservant standing by the door. She was practically straining to hear more. One of the concubines, who'd attend him every night if she could, Ji Wantong grabbed my head and turned it back. Listen to me. In this great big palace, you are the only person I trust. This matter of the heir is of immense consequence. It cannot be taken lightly. Her expression had grown heavy with seriousness. So, I have one critical task to entrust to you. Absolutely not. Not a chance. Ji Wantong, what are you thinking? The words were out before I could stop myself. I caught myself. My voice was far too loud. I dropped it to a harsh whisper. You want me to seduce CU? Ji Wantong answered calmly. But you are already his consort. That's not the point. If this gets out, how am I supposed to face anyone? What will all our old friends think of me? They'll say I, Shen Nanji, have no shame whatsoever. He's not even my biological son anyway. That's fine. It's still not happening. Ji Wantong then deployed her ultimate weapon and started wailing again. You are my one and only true friend in this world. If you won't help me, what am I supposed to do? How will I ever face the late emperor when my time comes? If it comes to that, I might as well follow the late emperor right now. Save myself the suffering. That old trick again. I grabbed her arm with a sigh. Where exactly did you pick up all these shameless tactics? Gigi, just say yes. She wore me down completely. Fine, but we agreed. Not a single third person can know about this. Ji Wantong left thoroughly satisfied. I was left alone, silently furious at myself. How did I let her rope me into this again? With Ji Wantong running interference for me, getting into CU's bedchamber turned out to be embarrassingly easy. So when CU walked in, he found me alone on his bed, hair hanging loose around me like I'd stepped out of a painting. I deliberately unpinned everything. CU told me about this later. Said he'd thought a female ghost from somewhere had crawled onto his bed. Gave him quite a fright. It took a good while before he recognized it was me. I raised my face with a coy smile. Your servant is here, Your Majesty. Your servant awaits. CU squinted at me for a moment. Were you struck by someone? Of course not. Then why are your cheeks so yellow? My smile was starting to slip. Is it possible this is the rouge your servant applied? CU studied my face for a moment more, then simply said, Don't wear it next time. It's unflattering. I stretched my mouth into a stiff smile. The hour grows late, Your Majesty. Perhaps you should retire for the night? CU gave me a look that was half smile, half not. We are not tired. Then your servant is not tired either. Your servant will keep you company. Internally. I simply don't believe you can stay awake all night. He stayed awake all night, went off to morning court the next day, bright-eyed and sharp. I was carried back to my quarters with 2 enormous dark circles under my eyes. I shuffled, barely conscious, into my bedchamber, and heard, The Empress Dowager arrives. Ji Wantong again. Well, how did it go? She took one look at the dark circles. I can't do this anymore. Ji Wantong, I'm getting old. Go find some sprightly young girl for this. Keep this up and I'll lose years off my life. My father sent me to the palace to live in comfort, not to suffer like this. I could see Ji Wantong's eyes welling up again. I had an idea. The next time CU barged into my quarters unannounced was on a sunny, peaceful afternoon. I was happily cracking sunflower seeds with Shu Jing when I looked up and found CU, face dark as a storm cloud. He grabbed my arm. I looked desperately to Shu Jing for help. That spineless traitor turned and fled. Noble consort Shen, you really are something. All these days, a turtle broth, soft-shell turtle soup. Your Majesty, a turtle and a soft-shell turtle are the same animal. Don't change the subject. I snapped my mouth shut. Shen Lanzi, what is the meaning of sending all those tonics? Your Majesty has seemed weary of late. Your servant thought some fortifying tonics would do good and hasten the blessing of an imperial heir. CU let out a furious laugh. You dare mock us? Your servant said no such thing. CU stepped in close, tilted my chin up with his hand. I turned my face away stubbornly. Noble consort Shen seems to have lost her earlier boldness. He was still clearly a young man, and yet somehow he made my face burn. I supposed I'd simply been in the palace too long. Men were a scarce sight. Something as small as this could set my heart racing. Truly incurable. What do you think you're doing?